Hello, everyone. Just as you're coming in, try to find a seat as promptly as you can. We've got a lot to fit in, and we're a little bit behind schedule. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to be beginning right now, so as you file in, and those of you who have to take seats in the upper level, just please remain quiet as we begin. Like I said, we're a bit behind schedule. So, like I said, good afternoon. My name is Emmett Brady.
And I'm Ben Hance.
We'd like to welcome you all to Lake Forest High School's Veterans Day program. Unfortunately, we don't have very much time to fit this all in, so we'd like to make this nice and quick. We'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all the people in the audience, as well as everyone who helped make this possible. We're very excited for our partnership with the Lake Forest American Legion, and at the end of the day, we hope that all of you take from this a newfound appreciation for the sacrifices that our veterans have made for us.
We will now go through our presentation of colors. We ask that all members of the audience stand to honor the flags and remain standing as we sing the national anthem and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
The LFHS band and choir will now play the national anthem.
We will now have a brief moment of silence, which will lead into the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
We'd like to invite audience members and the families of audience members who are family members or veterans themselves to stand up as we recognize their branch of the military that they served in with that branch's song. The first will be the Army.
The Army.
The Coast Guard. The Air Force.
The Navy. Every year, the Lake Forest American Legion sponsors a contest to honor Veterans Day. This year, students were asked, "What does Veterans Day mean to me?" Students were able to choose their preferred form of expression. Members of the Lake Forest American Legion reviewed each entry carefully and after much deliberation have selected the winners. Contest winners will receive a monetary prize and will also have a donation made to the Lake Forest High School organization of their choice on their behalf.
Our first presentation winner is Patrick Philpott. Please welcome him to the stage to share his essay.
I hope everyone's staying warm today. Okay. A hero is someone who gives his or her life to something bigger than oneself. That was said by Joseph Campbell. Sometimes it can be hard to stop and recognize something nowadays. Whether it's wildfires in California, political protests across the country, or hurricanes battering the nation. It's hard for individuals and family members to take a moment to get away from the constant worry. But there's always one day a year, no matter what else is happening in the world, that unites the country and encourages people to put aside their differences in the name of honor. Veterans Day is one day a year that people are able to celebrate the sacrifices and honor that our nation's veterans have laid down for all of us. Growing up in this day and age has exposed me to a lot of fights over various differences, disagreements regarding race, religion, or immigration. Veterans are people who put those differences aside for something much bigger than me, bigger than you, and bigger than all of us. They put their rights and feelings aside to protect this country. On Veterans Day, everyone comes together to celebrate and honor the sacrifices that these men and women endure to secure the future of all United States people. Let me take you back 78 years to the start of World War II, or maybe back 67 years to the start of the Korean War, or even back 62 years to the start of the Vietnam War. Imagine yourself in this time period, facing things you never thought you'd have to endure in your lifetime, but your country needed you. How do all these things connect? They connect by the sole fact that in every war the United States has participated in, there was always veterans. Those who served and survived, and those who weren't blessed to make it home to see their loved ones ever, we honor those as well. Each war boasts people who saw a problem that affected the way of their loved ones and the people around them. So they rose to the occasion to defend the American way. Be it World War II, the Korean War, Gulf War, or even the war on terror in Afghanistan. All of these wars share the simple fact that good men and women who believe they can make a difference in the world gave up their freedom to ensure ours. Not only is Veterans Day a day for celebrating the men and women who have defended us and are currently defending us, the freedoms of every American, but also their families. I personally have never had to deal with the hardship of a loved one or parent going to war, but just attempting to begin to comprehend the idea of that seems to be out of my emotional capabilities. Imagine yourself as a wife, a husband, a father, or even a daughter, going every day wondering if that loved one is going to be okay and survive that day. Veterans Day helps to celebrate the pressure and stress that these families have dealt with and are continuing to deal with without the deserve they need. It's time for those stresses and pressure to disappear. It's time to hear the appreciation and gratitude that everyone in not just the community, but every community around the country feels for you. Every year, I help my friends, the Berries, their local family, to distribute and lie Christmas wreaths on veterans' graves inside Fort Sheridan. Every year, we make the wreaths and lay them on the graves of these brave men and women who have served for our country. There was one year, though, and one particular experience that has struck me and has changed my views on Veterans Day. It was a cold fall morning. The frost hadn't even left the ground yet, and we were already laying down Christmas wreaths for the families of the fallen veterans. I was laying down a row of wreaths, and just after finishing the third gravestone in the row, an old man approached me. His Army vet hat indicated he was a veteran himself, and was full of badges and medals from whichever war he had served in. He said to me simply, "Thank you." I stood there, puzzled for a second and asked why he was thanking me. And as veterans often do, he began to tell me a story. It was the story of his brother, a man who had joined the Army as a young man just like himself. The story of losing his younger brother to the war was hauntingly painful. So in this moment, he was just simply thanking me for laying a Christmas wreath on his dead brother's grave because it meant the world to him. It showed him that the sacrifice that he paid, and unfortunately his brother paid as well, wasn't going to be unrecognized, but rather honored by the people it served. After thanking me and exchanging a few words, the old man walked away, and I never saw him again. This happened a few years ago, and ever since that experience, I've wanted to find out this man's name, not just to hear more of his stories, but to personally thank him. Happy Veterans Day, everyone.
Our second winner is a video creation from Teresa Fawcett and Annalise Craig. Please welcome Teresa and Annalise to the stage as we play the video they created.
Stay out, winter. Shoot a leg. Do something. This is awful. Bob Klein shared this advice in a letter with his best friend, my grandfather, Baba, in 1944 after his first week at boot camp. Baba listened to his advice. He joined the Navy instead. Born in 1927 as an only child, Baba moved constantly throughout his childhood. His father worked for the Big Four, a railroad that serviced the 4 big Midwestern cities and all the places in between. Every year or so, Baba moved towns, houses, and schools. At the age of 18, following the surrender of the Japanese in August of 1945, Baba was drafted into the Navy. He was sent to the United States Naval Training Center at Bainbridge, Maryland, where he soon caught scarlet fever. At first, doctors dismissed his hallucinating fevers and weight loss, but after collapsing on a laundry room floor, a gruff Bronx doctor showed surprising sympathy to my grandfather, and he was immediately sent to the hospital. Baba was 6 foot and he weighed around 100 pounds. But he recovered, and by the time he was well, the war was over. He went back to the Midwest to finish college, to Indiana University for his undergraduate degree, and eventually to Harvard Law School for his law degree. He became a lawyer, he married, and he raised his children in the suburbs. Baba never fought in the war. He was never deployed. He never faced off against Nazis or Japanese warriors. He never shot a gun. His life, however, was still shaped by veterans. It is because of our veterans that Baba was able to live to the age of 89. It is our soldiers who keep us safe, who allow us the opportunity for prosperity and the opportunity for freedom. Baba did not shoot his leg to avoid the draft. He was called to service, and he went. He did what he was asked to do. Thank you to all the veterans who do exactly this, those who fought, fight, and will fight for our nation. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day.
Our third winner is Maria Sarek. Maria created this painting and will share the inspiration for her piece.
Hello. So that's that. The inspiration for this painting came from the people I have known and even some that I have lost. A portion of my family has served in the military, and my father is currently serving at the base. I also have many friends currently serving, but I've experienced loss as well. At a young age, I watched a funeral procession for a man my whole school knew very well, and he was much loved. It left a hole in many hearts, but made us recognize the sacrifice our military makes for our freedom. It made us thankful for the world we live in, knowing that we are safe because of our serving men and women. As a nation, America has had hundreds of thousands of fatalities, and not all of them have been recognized. Through this painting, I wanted to honor not only those lost by our nation, but even the world as a whole. Though some have been forgotten on the ground where they fell, I feel that we must honor all of our veterans, whether they are with us now or gone. I wanted this painting to be a reminder to our country to remember all of our troops on this day. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day.
Once again, we'd like to congratulate our winners and thank everyone who took the time to participate in the contest. And to our winners, thank you for inspiring us through your creative designs. Next, we will have a performance of America the Beautiful by the Lake Forest High School Band. Accompanying them will be vocal solo artist Antoinette Pompey van Meerdervoort. Please welcome her to the stage.
Beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above the mighty with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Ben and I are incredibly honored and grateful to be sharing the stage with these veterans. Two in particular will be joining us today for some question and answer to get a little bit more of an experience, an understanding of an experience of what their experience was like in the military.
Joining us today, we have Al Champ and Ken Barber. Mr. Champ is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. He served as an Army Ranger during the Vietnam War. And Mr. Barber is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. He served as a naval officer during Operation Desert Storm.
We'll be asking you both a few questions. I'd like to first ask you both to share your path to the military. Was it something you always aspired to, or was there a certain event or circumstance that led you to join? What drew you to the branch you served in?
Well, I think I can answer that. My aunts and uncles all served during World War II. And when they came back, I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to them and hear their experiences during the war and what they had done in the service. And that sort of inspired me. And then when I was a senior in high school, I was an exchange student in Berlin, Germany, and I saw what our Army was doing, rebuilding the nation of Germany. And I decided then that I wanted to be a service. I applied for and was accepted at the military academy and served 30 years in the Army.
So unfortunately, my story is not as romantic as that one. I was recruited to play basketball at the Naval Academy, but that's the beginning of it. The end of it was probably along those same lines, meaning it wasn't until I kind of went into it. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I'd never heard of the Naval Academy and really wasn't looking to join the military. In fact, all of my friends were very surprised that I decided to go into the academy. But once I got there, it was the camaraderie, it was the sense of belonging, it was a sense of purpose that I got not just while I was at the academy, but then even more so when I got into the Navy, especially during a time of conflict. It makes life really serious very quickly when you're 21, 22 years old. But what you see is how committed and dedicated people from all walks of life can be to a single purpose and a single cause. And I was very proud to be part of that for the time that I served.
If you could share, what was the biggest lesson that in your time in the military taught you? Or what piece of advice would you give to those serving now or thinking about serving in the future?
I think the one thing that I learned is attention to detail and complete honesty in what you do. When you're in a combat situation, the smallest mistake can be the difference between someone's life being lost and someone's life being saved. You have to really be honest and completely transparent in everything you do.
Yeah, I'm going to echo those sentiments. It's very important when you're, both of those things, honor and integrity, are super important when you're out in the field of battle or in a combat situation. I think on top of that would be, I think early on, I don't know that I had a clear direction for what I wanted to do in life when I came out of high school, which many of you may not either. You know you're going to go to college, but you don't know I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be an investment banker or something like that. But what you know or what you figure out when you're in the military is, I think I'm pretty sure I want to lead. And leadership was something that very early on I felt like I was getting a healthy dose of, and a healthy, I was gaining more confidence in that at an early age. So I think it set me up very quickly for taking on leadership opportunities. And that's as an officer, but even as an enlisted person, I think the people who go into the military are predisposed to service, meaning the thought is you seek to, or you start to not stop thinking exclusively about yourself, but about other people, the other people on your team, the other people in your unit, what the purpose that you're doing helps the people back here in the United States, and it becomes bigger than just you. So that's, if you're thinking about it, those are the kind of things, those are the kind of people you're going to be around if you join the military.
What was your job or assignment, and what did it entail? How did you train for it? Was it something that you kind of expected going in, or was it something completely foreign and something you had no idea you would be doing?
Well, I had a number of jobs in the military. I started out, my first 2 assignments were to go to Airborne and Ranger School. And if you don't know what you're made of, this will teach you, because it's not easy. I came out of the Airborne and Ranger School, and I was assigned to a unit in Germany as a young officer. I was a battery commander and responsible for a platoon of men and a squad of men and a whole group of men. And we trained exclusively to protect the German border. After that, I had other number of assignments, but I think the one that impressed me most was my assignment in Vietnam. I was an advisor to the Vietnamese Airborne Division. I fought alongside young men, and they were in their country, defending their country, and I was there to help them, and I got the greatest amount of satisfaction from that assignment.
So when I graduated from the Naval Academy in 1991, and in May of 1991, and if you do the history lesson, we had just sort of gotten into and out of Desert Shield, the first sort of Gulf War. And when I had what's called a service assignment night, meaning you get to pick where you want to go, you have about 5 minutes in front of a board, and the officer was next to me, said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want the next ship that's leaving." And so I was ahead of my classmates and going right into the conflict that we were in or had just gotten out of, not knowing that we were going into another one immediately following that. So I was in surface warfare, which means I was the officer on a ship, sort of an understudy to be the captain of a ship. And so I studied navigation, engineering plants, combat information systems, and I did, so again, first conflict, came back home. I was stationed in San Diego. 9 months later, went right back for Desert Storm, and then Somalia while we were over there kind of blew up. So that was my path. Sort of in the first 3 years, I had a rack of ribbons like this guy, and I was only about 23 years old, so yeah, so that's what I did.
On behalf of the Lake Forest American Legion and Lake Forest High School, we thank you and celebrate you for all of that you have done to serve us. If we could have a round of applause for you guys.
Next, we'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Cawley. He's from the LFHS class of 1964, and he will pay tribute to his close friend and a former LFHS student and veteran, Carl Thorne Thompson.
Carl Thorne Thompson was my best friend, although I don't always think of him in the past tense, as even after 50 years, he continues to be an important influence in my life. Carl was a true humanitarian who early on realized he was in a privileged position and chose to use it so he could reach out to those who were on the margins of society. He was student council president, junior prom king, co-captain of the swim team, and a National Honor Society member, none of which would change his humble and unpretentious personality. Carl was a good athlete, excelled in the freestyle events for the swim team, always a positive force and supportive of his teammates. I remember during a qualifying swim meet for the state championships, Carl asked one of his teammates who was coming back into the locker room, "So how'd you do?" The boy said, "Not so good. I finished 23rd out of 30 in my group." Carl, always the quick wit, turned to him and said, "Look, don't get down on yourself. Think of it this way. You actually finished in the upper half of the lower two-thirds." His teammate went away smiling. I remember well the day he came to my house during the summer after a sophomore year in college. He told me he was dropping out of Harvard, giving up his exempt status and volunteering for the draft. He explained that his decision was largely based on the fact that the entire process was totally unfair to those who, for whatever reason, didn't go to college. Maybe they couldn't afford it, or maybe they chose to enter a vocational training program, or maybe they just had to help with the family business. Carl simply felt uncomfortable being exempt, while so many that were not had to disproportionately bear the burden of going off to war. Even though I didn't like his decision, it was difficult to argue with his reasoning, and knowing Carl, there was no way to talk him out of it. The one thing he was absolutely adamant about, however, was that I should not follow in his footsteps or feel compelled to do the same as he. He told me, "Jake, I know you only too well, and it's not in you to do this. Stay in school, avoid this war at all costs, and find another way to serve." So I took his words to heart, and in fact, after graduating from college, I joined the Peace Corps. That was typical of Carl. While he was in the Army, I've seen letters from those in Alpha Company that served alongside Carl in Vietnam. To quote a few, the type of guy you wanted to hang with. I have to assume he was well educated, as he was very intelligent and had that ability to recall things that would fit the conversation. He knew something about everything and everything about some things, but he was never condescending. Another said, quote, "Even though I knew him for a short 2 months, he left an impression on me that has lasted a lifetime. I suppose he made an impression on everyone that he knew." That was typical of Carl. While he was in the Army, he obviously never told anyone of his Lake Forest upbringing, or that he had been a scholarship student at Harvard, or a member of a championship rowing crew. He just wanted to fit in as an ordinary soldier. I strongly suspect, however, that the men of Alpha Company considered Carl anything but ordinary. So in the end, what can we all learn from Carl's short time with us? I think it would be this. Don't ever be afraid to venture outside of your comfort zone. Always try to continually expand your circle of friends and learn to appreciate the many divergent lifestyles around you. Reach out and lift up the spirit of those less fortunate. By doing so, it's a guarantee it will also lift up yours. There are people out there from all walks of life that can enrich your life. You just have to be willing to look for them. Thank you for allowing me to share a small sample of Carl's all too short journey. I can only hope that you will join me in keeping his memory alive. Thank you.
On behalf of Ben, myself, the Lake Forest American Legion, and Lake Forest High School, I'd like to thank all of you very, very sincerely for coming out today. It's been an honor to serve as your MC today.
For closing remarks and our dismissal, please welcome Dr. Holland.
Thank you all. This one? All right, thank you all. Can we give it up for our student MCs, please? And thank you to all of our veterans. It has been a true honor to partner with the students and staff of Lake Forest High School and the Lake Forest American Legion to organize this program. Every second of every day There are people who are giving their lives, the ultimate sacrifice on our behalf. Thank you for joining us in our recognition of our veterans. We hope that each of you are walking away inspired and grateful and appreciative for their sacrifices. On behalf of all of us, happy Veterans Day and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. If you want, please stick around and introduce yourselves to some of our veterans, but that's the close of our program for the day. Thank you.